Well, hello, I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian whistleblower, and this is Through the Diamond New Testament. And you can see we have a special guest with us today. Didn't have the heart to make him move. He's looking so comfortable, but don't worry, he won't say much. But today we're going to get back into going through the chronological New Testament, which is something that hasn't been done in 2,000 years, something that hasn't even been talked about in 2,000 years. Until people hear me, they don't even realize that the New Testament is not in chronological order as we know it. And of course, that screws everything up. You can't understand the flow of doctrine. You can't understand why things were taught and how they were taught. And more than that, as I really realized yesterday, when you go through the teachings of the Christ in chronological order, as well as the New Testament in chronological order, they dovetail. Even though the teachings of the Christ in chronological order start in the book of Mark, that was the first book that contained any direct teachings of the Christ as recorded, at least in the New Testament, and we start in James with the New Testament itself being in chronological order, James being the first book. So it's very interesting to me to see that even though we're starting chronologically in the New Testament and chronologically in the teachings of the Christ, even though it's not the same books, the messages dovetail. So it's very, very confirmatory to me of the importance of understanding the New Testament in its correct chronological context. And it should become very important to you as well as we continue to do so. So we're picking up again today in the book of James, and we're moving on to James chapter 3 as we continue through the Diamond New Testament. I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian whistleblower, and I do encourage you to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel so we can help get this message out to more people. And with that, let's go ahead and head over to the book of James. And here we are in the book of James. You can see we're at James chapter 3. And the title of this is, Taming the Tongue. And one thing you really want to bear in mind is when you read these type of headings in your Bible, they're not part of the inspired text. We already know that it's mostly dung and little diamond, but we'll trudge right along. And let's get started here with some diamond and dung right off the beginning. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. Dung, it's, brethren, be not many masters. And that's the end of what James was saying there. And if you look at it, what it means is, brethren, be not many teachers. You can see teachers right there. And of course, when we go to the Greek as well, it means a teacher. So what he's saying is, folks, don't rush into being a teacher, an instructor. Don't run into being, and this is interesting, don't run into being a teacher, don't run into being an instructor, really until you have mastered your field of learning. And that's a very good encouragement, that we shouldn't really run into being a teacher until we've mastered our field of study. And this should be said, I have a Bible college degree. I've spent over 100,000 hours in the biblical text. So they say 10,000 hours makes you an expert. I'm not sure what 100,000 hours makes you. That's up to you, but certainly I didn't fall out of bed this morning and just decide this is something that I would talk about. But see, this, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation, that is total pure dung. And you have to learn how to, if you're trying to evaluate the scriptures and you're trying to evaluate what's diamond and what's dung, you have to learn to evaluate the scriptures in a spiritual context. You know that the true gods of the Bible are not gods of fear. They're not gods of dread. They're not threatening gods. And here you have, don't be a teacher because you'll receive the greater condemnation. That should jump out to you when you begin to have some spiritual maturity. And you should be able to say, that's BS right there. I know that is. The gods are not in the business of promising woe upon people. So, and plus it just follows in the natural narrative of this verse when we forget that. So, brethren, don't rush out to become a teacher, because in many things we offend all. Forget this stupid verse about condemnation. Brothers, sisters, don't run out to be teachers, because most of us in many things we offend all. And let's just go back and see exactly what that means. He says, don't rush out to be teachers, knowing that, and we're going to forget that dung right there and just move into verse 2. Because in many ways, indeed, we all stumble. Stumble. We stumble, we fall, we err, we transgress. So this makes so much more sense. Listen, don't rush to be a teacher. Don't rush to be an instructor until you've mastered your craft, because many of us stumble, and you don't really want to be stumbling when you're trying to instruct, because not only does it make you look stupid, but that's not really the big key. Is you cause other people to stumble if you make mistakes. And I've done it even after having 90,000 plus hours. I still find that I've made mistakes, and that's okay, but you just need to keep it in mind, because listen, man, you're going to stumble. Listen, lady, you're going to stumble. And in fact, James says, if anyone is perfect, if anyone doesn't stumble in what they say, they're able to bridle their whole body. Now, this is very, very key. And let's look back and see how he says that in English. For don't rush to be a teacher, because a lot of us will stumble. Now, if you don't offend in word, if you don't stumble in your words, and see, it's not even offense, it's stumbling. If you don't stumble in your words, you become complete, and you're able to bridle the whole body. And that's really our goal. And bridling the whole body doesn't necessarily mean having your whole physical self under control, although it does lend a whole lot to that, because he's talking about is having your body under control, understanding that you're not, and let's look at the word, bridle the whole body. I bet you that bridle means to, control, to lead, to guide. Let's see what it says. He is able to bridle. What does that word mean? He's able to curb. He's able to restrain. He's able to sway. He's able to confirm and sway. So what they're saying is your body doesn't run you, but your spirit runs you. You have been able and have understood and have come to the place where you're able to bridle your body. You understand that it's not the body, it's the spirit. You understand that this is not you. The spirit within you is really you. And amongst the body, and again, we're talking about stumbling. We're talking about doing things, we're talking about stumbling. We're talking about coming up short of what we want to be. So keep it, all in context. Don't rush to be a teacher until you've mastered, because all of us stumble. And in fact, when we get to the place that we don't stumble in word, in what we say, then we're becoming complete, because we can bridle the whole body. And then James says, remember, we put bits in the horse's mouth and they obey us. We turn their whole body. Again, James is talking about, listen, when you can get your body to the place where you can have it obey you, you're making great strides. And he gives us a key, bits in the horse's mouth. Oh, so when we control our mouth, we can control our whole body. Yes, and let's just talk about that for a minute. When you control your mouth, you control your whole body. And you've heard me say before that the quality of life you live is based upon the quality of the questions you ask yourself. That's borrowed from Tony Robbins, who probably borrowed it from the creators of NLP, Bandler and Grinder, I think. Grinder or Grinder, but anyway. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so ugly? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose this weight? Why can't I get a job, get a good job? Why does nobody love me? Those are bad questions. Those are low quality questions, and they're low quality questions because when you ask yourself those things, your mind, your brain goes to work in providing answers for you. And of course, those answers are not helpful to you. Nobody loves you because A, B, C, and D, and those are not instructive to you. They're not helpful to you. They're condemnatory to you, and they'll cause you to stumble. Whereas, if you ask yourself, instead of saying, why am I so fat? If you say to yourself, how could I lose weight? What's a good way for me to lose weight? Much more constructive question. How can I lose some weight? How can I attract higher quality people? How can I get a better job? How can I save more money? How can I become more spiritual? How can I stop stumbling in my words? Those are constructive and instructive questions. And those are an example of putting the bit in the horse's mouth, and you're the horse. And I mean, let's just face it. The questions you ask yourself determine if you're the horse or if you're the ass, or if you would prefer if you're the horse or the horse's ass. It's up to you, the questions that you ask yourself and the things that you say, because understanding the law of attraction and understanding the energetic consequences of what you put out into the universe or into the ether. I might start using ether, the Tesla terminology. But when you put a bit in a horse's mouth, which would be me and thee, if we put a bit in our own mouths, we can turn about our whole bodies. We can take control of our whole bodies by taking control of our mouths. So instead of being horses' asses, we can just be hosses. We can, be filled with horsepower instead of horse poop. Behold also the ships. They're big, driven by fierce winds, but they're turned about with a very small helm, wheresoever the governor listeth. That's interesting. A big old ship, right? A ship compared to the size of the rudder, tiny. Probably a very close analogy, especially when this was written, to the size of the tongue compared to the size of the body. And he adds another complexity, and it's not just you and it's not just us and our stupidity with our mouths that we have to deal with, but also we have fierce winds. There are things that come against us. Life is not a cherry-boles, as my great-grandfather used to say, of course, meaning a bowl of cherries. Not always. And yet, we can, with a very small helm, which would be our tongue, we can still direct our ship where we want it to go in spite of the fierce winds and in spite of the horse's ass that we are until we learn how not to be. And in case you don't like me saying it, he said, and he brings it down and says, hey, it's the tongue is a fire. It's a world of iniquity, and not sin, but just iniquity. Let's see what that word iniquity means in verse number 6. 3:6. It's a world of iniquity, unrighteousness, injustice, hurt, violation of God's standards, opposite of justice. And when we're talking about we being filled with the spark of divinity, we begin to understand that what he's talking about is that it's a world of iniquity. It takes us out of our place as a child of God, as an offspring of the Elohim, as an Elohim in training, if you will. It takes away our kingdom of God within, and the tongue among our members, it can defile the whole body and set on fire the course of nature. Now, how can it defile the whole body? How can your tongue? Again, by those words you speak. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so ugly? Why will I never get ahead? I'll never, ever be spiritual. Those things will defile your whole body. And, forget this. This, again, is dung. Interesting stuff. So, brothers, sisters, Don't run out and try to be a teacher until you've mastered what it is you want to teach about, because we stumble, all of us. And in fact, when we get to the place where we don't stumble on our words, we're complete and we can actually control our whole body. It's just like when we put bits in the horse's mouth. The horse obeys us and it turns the whole body. So if we can control our tongue, we won't be a horse's ass because we're putting something in the horse's mouth, and straight to the horse's mouth. That's us. Even like a ship, great big ship, not only is it our own horse's ass mouth that gets us in trouble, but there's fierce winds. And if we can control this tongue, this mouth, we can even steer our ship where we want to go in spite of the fierce winds. So know it, the tongue, even though it's little, it can be a big problem. It can be a fire, a world of iniquity coming against who and what you want to be and who and what you really are. I think that's a good place to stop for today. We'll come back and wrap this up just a little bit. Very, very interesting stuff coming from the book of James. Now, I don't care who you are. That's just some good teaching. That's just some good practical instruction. See, even Rooney's excited about it. And it's just some really good stuff. And we want to continue to bring that to you. And that's why I ask you to subscribe to this channel, so you'll not miss out on this type of teaching, and so that more people can see it. So as you subscribe, as you like, as you share, then more people are exposed to this teaching. And if you have questions, I invite you to ask me questions. You can either ask me questions on my website at jeffreydarty.com or christianwhistleblower.com, or you can ask questions right here. I think you can contact me on the YouTube site, or you can contact, put a question or a comment down in any of the videos. So we'll continue to do this. We'll continue to grow this. We've got some new and exciting things coming up as far as our teachings. And for those of you that are in the Pinellas County area in Florida, we'll be doing some more stuff locally and hopefully across the country as well. But get into this, learn it. We're here to help you unwind your mind, and that comes from truth and understanding. So I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian Whistleblower. We're here to help you unwind your mind and, of course, unindoctrinate yourself.